Hey everyone, welcome back to Singularity again. I have only a couple of hours left in this cryptid thing, and I have actually made some pretty good progress so far. Everything. The next thing is so expensive, but honestly, I'm not too far from it, which is kind of wild. But I did end up getting a lot of things, which I need to read because I haven't yet. So, starting here, we have Hal, or Hal. I don't actually know anything about Persian pronunciation, so, invisible demons of Persian mythology, the Hal can take the form of insects and, when they wish to be seen, elderly crones. They target mothers and newborns at night, extracting their life force until nothing is left. And then, over here, we have Bunyip, which, again, I don't know if that is the correct pronunciation. For most of these, I don't know what the correct pronunciation is, but Australian Aboriginal folklore describes an animal that may be as big as a horse or as small as a dog, with flippers, fangs, tusks, or horns. Anyone wandering into their swamps risks being dragged into the water and eaten, which is definitely not good. We have... This picture is so cool. The unfathomable. Massive beasts are imagined to stretch across the sky or roil beneath the oceans. These beings are often protectors of the natural world and are used to explain the cataclysmic damage caused by nature, which I think is really cool, personally. I find natural disasters fascinating. It's one of the reasons why I'm studying environmental science. So also the culture of ways that people thought to explain those things historically before like modern science, I think is really interesting. Anyway, Raiju, riding bolts of lightning during storms. The giant Raiju are believed to be divine agents of the Shinto god of thunder. The beasts crash into the earth when thunder claps, creating fires and destroying homes. That picture also is very cool. I think that this creature is very cool in general. It's one of the ones that I'd heard of before this event, and it is very cool. Again, not sure exactly how this one is pronounced, but Yakumama, originating in the Incan Empire. The Yakumama is a giant snake considered the mother of all aquatic beasts. It is thought to protect the Amazon River, squeezing to death anyone that gets within 100 steps of it. I think also with this is past what I got to the last time that I played this event, so I'm excited. Changeling. When a fairy child in the British Isles is deemed imperfect, its parents may exchange it for a healthy human infant. Charmed to look like the stolen child, changelings have been used to demonize neurodivergent behaviors, which I feel a little mixed about that, because as a neurodivergent person myself, the idea that I'm a fairy child stuck in the human world is kind of fun, but also the fact that it has been used to torment neurodivergent people throughout history is not good. Okay, the next one, again, I really don't know how to pronounce several of the words in this one, but dingo neck, tales from the Okiek Maybe that's how it's said. Okiek people of Kenya speak of the dingo neck, a large leopard-like creature with scales and tusks. In the early 1900s, Western hunters come to Africa in search of the beast, ultimately failing to find and capture it. Of course they would try to find and capture it. Anyway. Chupacabra. In 1995, Puerto Rican farm animals are found gutted and drained of their blood. These gruesome attacks are attributed to the coyote-like chupacabra, turning the monster into a media sensation. So that's saying that there was a specific instance or incident of it in 1995. But I think that's one of the ones that's actually been around as like a cryptid in the lore for a lot longer. Okay. Capelobo. Maybe. It might be how that's pronounced. When old men get lost in the Brazilian rainforest and resort to eating raw meat, they are said to transform into capelobo with man-like bodies and anteater snouts. They break open skulls and eat human brains. That's interesting. That sounds a little bit like a Latin America version of a Wendigo or a Wendigo. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm not sure which is actually correct. But, because they have the thing where if they... I feel like there's different lore that says slightly different things, but I think that, like, the commonly agreed thing is that if they eat human flesh, that causes them to become the Wendigo, like the original one, happened because it ate too much human flesh, but then subsequently people who try to kill that one become the new one. So interesting. Okay. That's kind of cool. I think it's kind of interesting to see parallels across cultures of things that are not necessarily completely the same. Like, the anteater snout is pretty different than most depictions that I've seen of a Wendigo. But it's kind of interesting having stuff that's similar enough that you can kind of compare and contrast. Okay, another one that I don't know how to pronounce, but looks interesting. Tatzelworm. Explorers of the Alps speak of a dragon with a cat's face and the body of a snake. The lizard radiates strong heat, melting sand into glass just by touch. Its breath and blood are poisonous, making any encounter lethal. Which also seems pretty interesting. I really like this event. This one is very fun. And then the other one that I have up here, which also looks very unique, and I think explains why there are insects here and also here, because these ones are near this one that takes the form of insects, and these ones are near this one, which also Adzi, maybe, I don't know, I think so. I have no idea how it's pronounced, but I'm gonna go with Adzi. A shapeshifter that often appears as a firefly, the Adzi plagues the Iwi people of Ghana. In its insect form, it slips into the homes of its victims to suck their blood, killing them, possessing them, or driving them insane. That's another one where I think it's interesting to consider, like, the social aspect of the culture that a certain thing is from. when looking at the type of cryptids they may have, like, the fact that this one is an insect that sneaks into people's homes, I think is interesting in, like, knowing that that's a creature from the culture in Ghana, because if I remember correctly, I think that's one of the countries where a lot of people don't have reliable, like, window screens and, like, prevention for insects getting into homes. And I think it's really interesting how that may be something that's, like, more scary to them in that culture as a cryptid than maybe people in a culture where they do have a ton of, like, sealable windows and stuff. And I think that this whole thing is just really interesting to see kind of, like, what's prioritized by various cultures. Like, if you compare some of these, like, this one will just kill anyone near their swamps. This one might kill people in their rivers or ponds, but not if you give it cucumber, because it likes cucumber. It's just kind of a fascinating thing to sort of see the reflection of culture through these creatures. And I'm definitely interested to see, like, growing up in the US, the cryptids that I'm more familiar with. I'm curious if other cultures would find those more or less ominous, scary, mysterious, whatever you want to attribute to them, based on their experience or their culture. Because I feel like there are some cryptids in American culture that I guess are, like, not necessarily scary. I mean, maybe they are, but, like, I feel like a lot of times when people talk about Bigfoot, they talk more about it in the sense of, like, let's go find Bigfoot and prove that it exists. Which I feel like most of the times I've encountered people who genuinely believe in Bigfoot. It's more of, like, a curiosity and, like, wanting to prove it as fact rather than necessarily being afraid of it. But then there's some of these other ones where it's, like, way more, like this one, it's like any encounter is lethal. Like, certain of these, it seems like there's a lot more fear behind it, and I think that there are some of those in American culture as well. But it's just interesting seeing how they all sort of compare, and it's just kind of fun. I think that folktales and fairy tales and urban legends and stuff like that is such an interesting way to learn about another culture, because normally, especially, like, folktales and fairy tales for children often have some kind of moral or lesson, and if you look at that, you can kind of see, like, okay, well, it seems like being generous is important in this culture, or being humble, or being, like, other sort of personality traits or characteristics that the stories try to teach, And then it's interesting seeing patterns and starting to realize, like, okay, well, there's a lot of stories in this culture about, like, patience, but then in this other culture, there's a lot of stories about, like, selflessness or some other kind of thing, and being able to look at those and see, like, okay, well, that does actually make sense for this culture. I don't know, it's just kind of fun, and I think I grew up being exposed to some stories from different cultures, and then in, there are so many options. In high school, when I was taking Japanese, we talked about, my group did a project on folktales. And it was interesting kind of having a sense of the culture at that point to read the folktales, and there are certain ones where there kind of is an equivalent in Western literature or Western folktales, but there are so many that are completely unique. And even the one that we talked about, oh yes, I can automate this now, perfect. Even the one that we talked about as kind of being a parallel to something, still really is sort of its own unique thing. Even if you can kind of say, like, this is closest to this other one, which would be the Mirror of Matsuyama being somewhat comparable to Cinderella. And even that, I feel like, is a little bit of a stretch, because it's like, okay, stepmother that's kind of not even necessarily evil, but that there's not really understanding between her and the stepmother, and they don't really get along, and then by the end there's sort of like reconciliation stuff. It's like, having something like that is so interesting, where it's almost like Western culture wants to try to force it to fit into this mold of, like, oh, well, this is like something that's our culture's story, when it's like, it's kind of its own thing. And I think the moral is different, the sort of interaction is different, but it's very, very fun to kind of look at stories from that sort of lens of not only, like, what is this story representing, but also, like, what part of their culture is influencing this particular, like, why is this something that children grow up learning? And I think that there are definitely stories that, like, modern kids learn that may not have fully the same, like, moral teaching lesson impact that they necessarily used to. But it's still kind of interesting, and I think, like, one example is, I feel like, for a lot of people, certain stories, like, learning about monsters in the woods, or something like that, like Red Riding Hood, or stories like that, where it's kind of trying to scare people into not, like, wandering off into the woods, although I know that that one actually has a different sort of moral that young kids wouldn't necessarily pick up on. But, like, how many kids now still go wander the woods alone versus when that story was initially written and starting to be read? And I think that also goes for games too, like kids' games, because a lot of kids' games, if you actually think about the words to them, are kind of morbid. And I don't necessarily know when kids would need exactly what's in those games. I mean, I feel like it's a little bit of a different perspective now that COVID has happened with, like, when I was old enough to know what Ring Around the Rosie is actually, like, based on or talking about, I was like, well, why do I need to know about the plague? Like, that was a long time ago. And it's not the same plague, but there has been one during my existence, and the solution to it isn't the same thing as it is in that, like, nursery rhyme. But it's just really interesting how it reflects both culture and time. And I'm sure there are a ton of actual, like, anthropologists, researchers, historians, like, any other kind of person in that field who studies, like, human culture, literature, anything like that, who probably have done a lot of studies on this in a much more scientific way than I have. Like, I'm just kind of rambling on about things that I feel like I've noticed, or that I've seen, or that I've heard, but I don't really have any, like, solid scientific research evidence for this. But it is interesting. And I think I talked about that a little bit during my last recording that had cryptids in it, but it is interesting. Perfect. Ooh, those are new. Wait a minute. Do I have those available yet? Oh, but I want those. Those are cool. And I don't know what this last one is either. I'm sad because I don't think I'll be able to finish it again. But I definitely got closer than the last time. Stuff got really busy because I had 2 days of internship, and then Sunday was Cosmos's birthday. So I was making sure that I could be around and present for him and everything. And I know I just spent all of the resources that I need for this one. But, I don't necessarily know if I will have time to get to much else in this. So I really, really want to play this sometime, though, when it's actually realistic for me to finish it. And this one is also interesting. It's a longer one. This one, Unfold the Universe, is one of the few that I have actually finished. So that's kind of exciting. I think there was one other one that I finished too. I think it was I don't remember what its actual title was, but like the Abyss, the Earth's Oceans one, I think I finished, and then I finished the James Webb. And I'm pretty sure I did finish the Oceans one, because I remember it going down and getting to like the volcanic vents and stuff on the ocean floor, and then sort of going back up again, which I'm pretty sure that was the end. So I've not finished Anatomy of Life before. I kind of wish there was some way where you could see whether you've finished one of the shorter events or not. I don't know that there is, unless you're in it and can see, like, I don't know. Interesting things to think about. Also, this music is really fun. I feel like I've mentioned that, but I also feel like I haven't talked about it as much as I theoretically should. It feels really like, I think it's matched really well because it sounds almost calming, but there's like a hint of eeriness behind it. And I don't know about anyone else, except like I've seen comments on videos that seem to agree with this, but I sometimes listen to creepy stories to relax and fall asleep. Sometimes I listen to them more just to like have entertainment, but a lot of the times I find them just kind of relaxing. If I'm like in my house or in my car and like the doors are locked, it could be night, it could be day, but sometimes it's just fun to enjoy like a nice creepy story. And I think that one of the things that is interesting about, like, in this one, it's saying the campfire. So, like, this is almost like a story that campers tell before bed. And so it's like, that's sort of weird. Like, I don't know what the actual, like, psychology is behind it or anything, but the sort of, like, having a creepy story can be kind of relaxing thing, I think is very interesting. And having music that kind of reflects that, where it's like a hint of eeriness but also just really calm and relaxing and ambient, is kind of fun. I also feel like sometimes people try to go way too hard into, like, the music has to be really intense or scary. But in this game, I think it works to not have it be as intense, to just have it be very, like, here's the ambience when you're learning about these things. It earns very slowly. I'm just kind of like enjoying the music right now. But yeah, I definitely think that this one is really well designed. because I think it's so fun to have these really subtle little details. Like, at the start, it's just kind of like shadows of trees. But then, now you've got like a hand, maybe another hand, something like on all fours, kind of. There's more hands. There's all the insects. There's this thing, which may be like a figure. This kind of looks a little like a hooded figure with like arms reaching out. But there's just all these really subtle details, and it's so good. Also, if you have not checked it out and don't get too creeped out easily, I highly recommend checking out some creepy story narrators on YouTube or other listening locations. I know a lot of people work really hard to make really good narrations of stories, and I listen to several channels, but I think there are so many really, really talented, I guess audiobook narrators is kind of the right thing. I know a lot of them are shorter than audiobook, but they deserve support and love for what they do. Because as a person who does some voiceover work, audiobook people work so hard and a lot of times don't get paid as much as they should. So people who are doing these short stories and uploading them like several times a week, every week, a couple times a month, anything like that takes so much effort, all the editing, especially when people put like soundtracks in the background to kind of enhance things with sound effects or music. It's really good. There's so many that are very good. And actually, a lot of them include at least some of the cryptids that we've talked about during this particular recording. Not necessarily all of them ones that are actually in this list, but there have definitely been some that I mentioned that there are some interesting stories about. And honestly, it's educational and it's fun. So, I'm just enjoying it. I really wish I could get to the end, but I don't think that I will be able to at this point, which is a little sad. Okay, those are still expensive. Everything is expensive now. Okay. I think at this point, I know this is a little bit shorter than some of my recordings, but I think at this point I've kind of done what I can in these simulations. I think that there's definitely a lot I want to do the next time that event comes around. I really want to try and actually beat it. But for now, I think I'm going to read this new one because I have it, and then leave this here. So, Alpha Predator, while once thought to be a scavenger, evidence now shows that T-Rex was a skilled hunter with a diet that consisted of a wide range of other dinosaurs and even other T-Rexes. Alright. I am pretty satisfied with what I got done. Both during this recording and before it, because I was able to actually get pretty far into the cryptids, which is really nice. And I also got my T-Rex automated after so long, and even got a little more progress on Haumea, even though I still have a long way to go on that one. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!